Hey, greetings to all and welcome to this McCarter at Home event. McCarter at Home is McCarter Theater Center's virtual programming from Princeton, New Jersey in the US, and its goal is to bridge the isolation gap and be a source of light and art and culture and human connection during these times. My name is Paula Alexson, and I am McCarter's Artistic Engagement Manager, and it's my great pleasure to moderate the McCarter Live in Conversation series. And it is so wonderful to have our special guest, Dylan McDermott, actor of stage and screen, return virtually to McCarter to be in conversation with longtime friend, and we'll talk about how long in a moment, and collaborator, McCarter Artistic Director and resident playwright, Emily Mann. Hi, you two. How are you?
Very good. Very well. Thanks, Paula.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us. We have local, regional, and a national audience today with a few folks zooming in from Canada and Europe and South America. Sandra in Austria, you win the medal for staying up the latest to see Dylan.
Thank you.
And we're live streaming on Facebook as well. So greetings to our Facebook viewers. And thank you everyone for joining us. And a special thanks to everyone who submitted questions. The Q&A function is open for folks who are attending in the Zoom room and also the chat. I've already incorporated a lot of submitted questions into my discussion journey for Emily and Dylan, but I will try to incorporate as we move along. So thank you for that. So Dylan, we've been kicking off these McCarter Live in Conversation events with Emily with basically a quarantine, current moment, sort of personal check-in. From where are you zooming in, and with whom are you quarantined, and how is it going for you in terms of your day-to-day experience?
Yes, I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm with my youngest daughter, Charlotte, who is 14. And you know, I think like a lot of people, it's a struggle to maintain in this new world, and it's quite different. And it's hard. It's hard to watch people get sick. It's hard to watch people die. It's hard to go out because you're always anxious. Even if I have a mask or gloves on, or just or whatever, I feel like should I be out? Should I not be out? Having said that, the good part of this is that I've deepened my relationships with my daughters. My eldest daughter's 24, just turned 24 yesterday, and she stayed with me for a month. And both of my daughters, I really have kind of drilled down to our fundamental relationship rather than being distracted, because so much of the time we are distracted in life and we're always somewhere else or about to go somewhere else or wish we were somewhere else. And this has forced me to sort of be in the now, be in the present tense, and to really be in relationship with my daughters in a very deep manner. So that's been the great part for me.
I know you're feeling that too, Emily.
I am indeed. I feel the grief and the anxiety. We've lost so many wonderful people in our lives and in our profession, and all over the country and the world. And there's no way to keep that out of your mind. And the anxiety, as Dylan so wonderfully described. But I too, on my good days, find so much beauty in this isolation, and gotten even closer to my husband. I have found myself even closer to my children. So we did, in fact, take the risk, because they have been as maniacally quarantined as I have been. So my son, daughter-in-law, and nearly 3-year-old grandson came to visit on the weekend of Mother's Day. And it must have been the happiest Mother's Day I've ever had. It was so precious. And that's one of the things about, I think, this very strange life we're all struggling to work with, is those things that really matter in life have become so much more beautiful and truly something that I care about, and and will never, ever take for granted again.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Emily. Happy Mother's Day to you. Dylan, so many of your fans who are with us remarked and send their best to you, and also to your mom, Eve Ensler. I'm wondering if you had the opportunity to Zoom or FaceTime or Google Hangout on Mother's Day.
Pretty much just talked, and you know, we're kind of old school in that way. We just
phone.
You know.
So for the two of you, I've curated a conversational journey that's going to touch upon how your career paths crossed and brought you into artistic collaboration with one another. And I'd love to, because of knowing how that happened, dig into your mutual passion for and relationship to the plays of Tennessee Williams, and have you talk about your memories of your work together on his plays. And then I'd love for you to share what you are on target to do this spring and how the COVID-19 crisis has sort of impacted those projects. And to also learn, because the audience is also interested in what you've been thinking about as artists and what new plans you're making for the future. So you two should feel free to deviate from the path at any time, but that's sort of the plan. So Emily, have you ever heard Dylan's theatrical origin story?
Have I, Dylan?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. Why don't you start to tell it, and I'll see if it rings any bells.
I know it. So
of course you do. What was your first exposure to theater, and when did it become certain to you that you would pursue acting professionally?
Well, you know, all the credit goes to Eve Ensler. I mean, I met her when I was 15 years old. She saw something in me that I never saw in myself. She's the one who said, you should be an actor. You're going to be an actor. And she literally walked me over to HB Studios. And you know, when I was a kid, I lived in a lot of fantasy, and I thought that the people on TV were actually, they lived in the TV. So you know, it was all new to me. But it was really Eve. And then she started writing plays, and we would do smaller plays at St. John Divine. And she really inspired me, and she really kind of like just brought me along, and I would read stage directions at her plays. And, you know, I would be enamored. I was always enamored of actors because I used to wait on actors as a kid. I used to wait on John Belushi and my father's, when he was managing a restaurant in Greenwich Village in the 70s. So I had always been enamored of actors and the way they were treated. I was like, wait a second. How can they treat them so much better than the rest of the I think I want to, you know, break me off a piece of this because it's pretty cool. So I think that, you know, being around Eve certainly, and I think my first love of theater was Eugene O'Neill. Mm-hmm. I remember I was at Fordham University and I walked by a sign and it said Eugene O'Neill scene study, and I was like, whoa, because Eve had talked to me about O'Neill. And I kind of stumbled into class and ended up doing Long Day's Journey into Night. And I remember as soon as those words came out of my mouth, because I didn't have the vocabulary to express myself as a human being. But when O'Neill's words came out, I was finally home, if you will, because I had someone to express how I felt. And I never looked back from that moment. And that's what an artist, you know, that's what we need. That's why we need art in the world, because people can't always feel for themselves, and artists have to express feelings so people therefore can feel. And that's what happened to me.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. So after Fordham, which you attended as an undergraduate, you went on to study with Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. Could you talk about your training with Meisner? And for Juliet, who's watching from Perrineville, New Jersey, could you share what aspects of Meisner's technique you still employ when working in either film or on stage?
Funny enough, you should say that, because the other day I was doing a scene, I think in January, I was doing a scene from Hollywood on Netflix. and the director asked me if I was good. And Sandy was on my shoulder that day. And he was literally talking to me in my ear. And he said, "No, you're not good." And I did like another 4 takes after that. So Sandy, we were doing Spoon River, as a matter of fact. And I remember he sent me down into the basement like at least 12 times. And I was exhausted. And he kept sending me down and sending me down. And making me my preparation fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller until I had nothing left. And I finally came back after the 12th time after him sending me downstairs. And he said, and I was depleted of emotion. And he said, "That's how you work." And he taught me and he trained me to work from the deepest part of myself. And so as of recently, when I was doing that scene, he was still there. He was still talking to me because he's really the barometer. You know, it's when I feel like I'm done with a scene or done with a performance or done with a rehearsal, it's always him that's the barometer really inside me. So he's still there many years later. He's still talking to me.
Emily, one of the things I love about interviewing you is that you've met and know so many people in the business. Did you ever meet Sandy Meisner?
I did, but I didn't study with him. I love Meisner students. I love those people, especially those who came out in the early days with him. And he was relentless, and they were relentless on themselves, just the way Dylan is talking. It's one of the reasons I love working with Dylan, is he goes so deep and he's never satisfied. And that's how I like to work. And the best Meisner students are that way. If Sandy hit you the way he hit Dylan, which is a perfect story about him, then he doesn't seem to leave you.
Yeah.
I wonder if for the both of you, can you spot like who has that training before you have a conversation about them? Is it something that an actor carries?
You know, it's a law of attraction, really. You look at the actors that I'm certainly attracted to, you know, the Joanne Woodwards of the world, who was a great mentor to me as a young actor, took me under her wing. You know, Robert Duvall, Gregory Peck. You know, they had something special about them that I was immediately attracted to. And that's why I chose to go. I had scholarships to go around the country to graduate schools. And I really chose to study with Sandy because I felt like he was the best. Yeah. And there's a few, you know, at that time, there were only a couple master teachers. Maybe he was the last one left. So, you know, I'm glad I made that choice because he certainly made me a much better actor than I was.
Yeah.
So Dylan and Emily, when was it that you first became aware of one another as artists?
Well, I can answer with Dylan. It's really simple. My first play here 30 years ago was The Glass Menagerie. And I was looking for Tom, and we were auditioning in New York. It was Johnson Lift they were casting it. We were in a Broadway studio, and Dylan walked in the door, nailed it. We worked. I remember giving him a few adjustments, and he took them, and he blew my mind. I thought, oh, where has he been all my life? But he was so young; it couldn't have been for very long, right? And
so you had not seen any of his film work?
I had not. I'm ashamed to say. And in those days, it wasn't so easy. Now you get all these reels, and you get, you know, you go on your computer and you can find things. But it was hard. I don't know what. No, it was the old-fashioned picture and resume, and the casting director say, "Oh, this guy's fabulous. He's your kind of actor." Blah 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 blah.
I kind of prefer that, by the way.
What?
I kind of prefer that.
I know what you mean. So do I. And I don't know, we met. I remember the look. I remember looking into his eyes and going, oh, okay. And there was depth there. There was intelligence there. And then there was all this stuff churning around in him that he used. He knew how to use, even as a very young guy. So, you know, I had that with Mary McDonnell. Remember? I mean, I looked her in the eye, I saw the work, and I went, oh my God, who are you? Dylan's one of those for me.
Dylan, what was your experience of the audition with Emily? Do you recall from that time?
You know, we're going back 30 years now, but yes.
Why would he remember?
I do recall, you know, auditioning and wanting to do a play, and specifically wanting to do Tennessee Williams, because again, you know, doing the greats always makes you a better actor. And I was always in love with Tennessee Williams. I mean, it's just, I remember going to New Orleans. I was shooting a movie in New Orleans, and I went to his house, and I just stood in front of his house for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so, and just kind of drank in his aura, you know. And I did the same thing in Princeton at Einstein's house. It's kind of like take these great people, and you just want to get maybe a couple of drops of their artistry or their intelligence, you know. But anyway, I really wanted to do a play, and the great fortune was it was Emily, because, you know, she's, to this day, you know, you have all these experiences and you work with a lot of people, and you know, not to say that they're not good, but you know, only a few stick along the way. And Emily is one of those people that has just been, you know, she sticks in your heart. And she's such a great artist, and there's so few people in the world like her, and you want to be around her, and you want to work with her, and you want to collaborate with her, and you want to do all those things. And that's a special, in my career, that's a special person. I would say there's, you know, not that many that I want to go back and have more experience, and you know, but the ones that I do, like Emily, you want to do it. That's why people work with the same people over and over again, because they trust those people, and they know that they're going to deliver, and they know they're going to have a good time, and then they know that they're just going to show up and do. And it's about the work, and that's certainly what happened with Emily and I. You know, we just did the work, and we enjoyed it, and we were young.
we were very young.
Emily, I knew that you worked on the Glass Menagerie with Dylan for your first season, but I didn't realize that, I think it was a January show. Is that correct?
Yes.
That was your first show of your first season.
Yes, because there was a renovation of the theater going on. So I didn't have a fall season. The first show was January, and the opening was the day we invaded Iraq.
Oh my gosh.
I remember Ming Cho Lee said to me, you have to go up on stage and tell everyone and tell them that this is, you know, just so auspicious on the one hand, because this is what the play is all about, you know, bombs falling. But also that you would understand if people felt the need to go home to their loved ones or go to the television. I remember having to make the first curtain speech of my life as McCarter's artistic director. Wow. And it being very emotional and an extremely big moment in the world. But yeah, it was my first show at McCarter. I had done the play once before in Minneapolis at the Guthrie Theater. And that's when I was the first woman to ever direct on the Guthrie main stage, right? I think I told you that in the history of that theater. And that was an extraordinary cast. And it was Ming Cho Lee's set. And when I came here, I thought I should lead. And then it was, you know, 11 years later, I should lead with something I know people would love as a play, and also that I really know I can knock out of the park. Shirley Knight came on with us. I met Dylan, Judy Kuhn was Laura. I mean, it was just a magnificent cast, and it was a great beginning.
Such a, just to jump in, what a deceptive play though.
Oh,
It seemingly is straightforward,
right.
right? And you think, oh, I got this. it's so hard. It's so hard, that play. You've done it twice. And I've seen numerous productions of it, and it's just like, it's so elusive.
It is. It's a very hard play, and it's so many layers and it's so many levels. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be getting both the humor and the pain. Mm-hmm. And it's a really tricky nut to crack. But boy, when you do, the riches are incredible. Yeah.
No, you go, Emily.
No, I was just saying that that was the first time out with Tennessee, and I fell madly in love with his work. And his brother came to see it at the Guthrie and said, "Oh my God, this is my favorite production of the play I've ever seen." And so he told Tennessee, and Tennessee called me. I got to meet him.
Wow.
And whenever I would have, like you have with Sandy Meisner, whenever I have a problem when I'm working on one of his plays, and I've done 4 of them now, I just hear him. I hear him, I feel him, and it's like it's almost like he guides me through. Mm-hmm. And part of it is that he had the funniest laugh of anyone on earth. And the thing about, I know what you mean about going to his house in New Orleans. I did the same thing. Was it the Yellow House? Because he lived in 3 different places. Yeah, and he wrote Streetcar there, right?
Wow.
And he would always say something that would make you laugh or smile. He was not critical in a way that was hurtful. And he was so loving, and it was all about how much he loved his sister and how much he loved his mother, and he loved me because I understood them. And it's all about love with Tennessee.
I have there's a Tennessee Williams thread in this, because my character in Hollywood, I have a scene with Vivian Lee in the show. And she asks me to read lines with her from Streetcar Named Desire, because this is a play that Tennessee Williams just wrote. Would I read lines with her? And I say, yeah, sure. I'm not much of an actor, but and I start to read Mitch, and I read him really like furiously and with a lot of passion. She goes, "Oh my God," Vivian Lee says, "Oh my God, I'm going to tell Tennessee Williams that you're so right for this role." And I'm like,
"That's really great."
And then the sad part is that Tennessee Williams never calls me.
Oh.
And my character is heartbroken.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to let you know that in the chat, and he also sent this as a note when he registered, Peter from Los Angeles said that Glass Menagerie was life-changing for your audience, and he expresses his eternal thanks to you both. I found an old review of the production, and clearly the reviewer was irked a bit for some reason, and he referred to the production as having a different approach. And I wonder, I know.
From what? Yeah.
I know, right? But I wonder if you have a sense of what, does that have to do with the fact that we so often, especially when we experience that play on the page, typically in high school, we read it as so heartbreaking, but it seems as if you were exploring the humor in it as well.
Well, it's just there, you have to let it be. But it's the humor, but that wasn't what it was. I mean, I believe that the scene between the gentleman caller and Laura, that the gentleman caller actually, he falls in love with her just as much as she falls in love with him. It's like every fantasy she's ever had, but he's heartbroken to leave her. I mean, I just raised the stakes, and that's, I think, with Tennessee, you have to raise it. Like in Streetcar, it's not, they sleep together. It's a rape. You can't, he is really clear with you about what's going on. When Tom has that explosion and he breaks the menagerie, there's no pussyfooting around that. That's got to take everything in your guts to let go of. And, you know, I'll never forget Dylan in that scene. I mean, you can't hold back from it. I mean, I think that's, usually it's done very politely, but you can't do Tennessee politely.
I still think we should actually do Streetcar sometime, Emily,
Oh God, you want to?
before we get out of here.
Please.
Oh,
We should do it sometime.
okay.
All
Oh
right.
my God, we totally should.
Yeah,
I want to do it again.
sure.
I loved
I've done
doing it, but I want to do it again.
So
I mean, it's so funny with me and Dylan because it's not as if I didn't ask him to do many more things between Glass Menagerie
about that.
and Baby Doll, but he had this incredible TV and film career, so couldn't get him back. But we did do 2 phenomenal collaborations on Williams. I mean, Baby Doll was really one of the highlights of the 2 of those shows, 2 highlights of my career.
You can't leave it at 2. It has to be 3 for the
I think so.
You're right, the magic 3.
Three's a charm.
I'm
For
with
people
you,
that
Dylan.
For people that weren't with us in Princeton for Baby Doll, and that we were just reminiscing before we started broadcasting that was actually the fall of 2015, so almost 5 years ago. Emily, I wonder if you could share how the project of a stage adaptation of Tennessee Williams' screenplay Baby Doll came about. And Dylan, I was going to ask you what drew you to the project, but I already know it was Emily. How did the stars align? Well, it was Williams and Emily. How did the stars align to make you available? Emily, will you sort of take us back as to how that adaptation came about?
It started because my French translator and wonderful playwright friend Pierre Laville had gotten the rights to the screenplay and made a stage adaptation for it in Paris, and it was very successful. And he sent it to me, and I said, "Oh, I love it, Pierre, but it's very French. I don't know what you've done, but it doesn't feel like Tennessee to me." He said, "You take it and work with it, and you know, we'll co-adapt. It's yours." So I started working on it, and then Amelia LaPenta, our brilliant literary manager at the time, had gone to the Princeton Manuscript Library, and there was the original screenplay of Tennessee's with all his handwriting. Talk about, you know, breathing him in, right? And there were scenes that were never either in the screenplay, or he wrote many, he had a few stabs at making a play out of it. And there was the scene where, Dylan, where you cleared the table after being called a wop, right? Yes. That was, I found in the Princeton archives. So I made a script, and Pierre loved it. And the first call I made was to Dylan. As I recall, I called you. I remember being on the phone with you. I don't think I might not have gone through your agent.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. And he went, oh my God. And I was talking to him, and he said, oh, send me the script. And then, I don't know, it just fell into place.
Yeah.
And then I looked for Baby Doll. And the last person to audition in New York, I mean, I could not find her. And I walked past a blonde woman in the hallway, sort of looking like this. And I thought, and I looked at her, I said, are you coming in to see me? And she went, and I thought, oh my God. I went racing back into the room. I said, who is that woman out there? I think that's Baby Doll. And they went, oh, that's Susanna Hoffman. And I went, oh my God. And I had to run to the ladies' room, and I went right past her. I went, I'll be right back. And she came in and nailed it. And it was like, oh my God. I thought I was going to have to call Dylan and say, we're going to have to postpone or cancel. I can't find her. No. And there was Susanna. So we got together, and the chemistry between the two of them was like insane. When there are still women who will stop me on the street in Princeton who say, oh my God, scene on the swing with Dylan and Baby Doll, and he sometimes remembers Susanna's name, sometimes don't. They said, that is the most erotic thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just get so happy to remember. They were like fanning themselves, you know, in the audience. It was so hot.
Our beloved Susanna Hoffman is actually in the Zoom room with us. So we love you, Susanna.
Susanna!
Sending our love to you in Brooklyn. We're so glad. Our beautiful
much
Susanna,
love.
who was an amazing baby doll with amazing Dylan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I just can't help but show this. One of the most amazing images. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it, but the two of you
in the crib
ended up, I think it was on American Theater Magazine, the cover of American Theater Magazine. It's so stunning.
So beautiful.
Emily and Dylan and Susanna out there, when COVID closed McCarter, and we were all thinking about if we could stream from our archive, what could we stream? And my wife, Patrice, and I, we thought we would most love the opportunity to see your production of Baby Doll with Dylan and Susanna. Like, it's stunning and funny and sweet and surprisingly feminist in a way that the film isn't. And Emily, you always had a vision for the story as a theatrical experience that I couldn't get on the page myself, but the fully realized production with all of the elements and the crafted performances, it will always be one of my favorite experiences at McCarter.
Thank you.
Say that. I know that capturing something on video isn't the same, but I hope sometime in the future, other folks that weren't able to be there for Dylan and Susanna's performance and your excellent staging, and Eddie Pierce's beautiful sets and lighting, and Robert Joy and Patricia and the chicken, who we now know has passed away.
Yes.
All would be able to experience that. And there are people filling up the chat that are saying that, yes, well, first of all, yes, please do Streetcar. Baby Doll was wonderful. Baby Doll at McCarter was amazing. And Susanna's sending, hi, I love you all. So
I love you, sweetie. I also just want to do a shout out to Eddie Pierce and his family, because we have been praying for him for a month. He got the virus. He was in intensive care, intubated for 4 weeks, and he's home.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm just so happy. Yes. For him, for his family.
Often. That's an amazing story.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm going to adapt a question from Elizabeth, who's with us today from Bedford Hills, with a question that I have, which is, so what is it about Williams? What is it that draws us, that captures and captivates us? It's sort of going back to what Dylan was saying about the greats. What is it that makes this great? From an actor's perspective, from a director's perspective, a playwright's perspective?
You know, I think for me, Tennessee kind of captures the masculine and the feminine at the same time.
Yeah.
And very few writers know how to do that. And that's, I think, the magic of him, for me, is that you can be an animal at one point, and then you can be a flower. And that's the magic of Tennessee Williams. You know, he occupies that rare space of male and female.
He really does. I think I was first drawn to him because of his female characters, because there are so few brilliant parts for women. And Tennessee understood women like nobody's business. But as Dylan said, also men, obviously, I mean, iconic performances, male performances have come from actors doing his work. But also as a playwright, I have to say that he was a great poet of the theater. He was, so few playwrights can take a poetic look and use, but it's theatrical poetry and language that comes right out of the reality, heart and soul of the culture and these particular characters, but it's also somewhat elevated. It's somewhat heightened. So when those words come out of your mouth with truth, you go to another magical level in terms of the stage electricity. Also, you know, I'm very drawn to that. He was very drawn to the powerful force of passion and eroticism and sexual passion. And he did it so elegantly and truthfully. And he understood men and he understood women. And that to me is an extraordinary gift. So many of his plays deal with that. And in my younger years, I was really drawn to that enormously, but I guess I still am. And I also learned a great deal having done the Streetcar of Color on Broadway, because he's a Southern writer. He wrote from his, the cradle of where he came from. I mean, he understands the Delta. He understands people who grew up in the Delta. He understands transplanted people from the Delta, like the Williams family in St. Louis. And having done it with a Black cast, African-American cast, and then it was actually very mixed, because New Orleans is very mixed. It's very Creole, you know, Spanish as well as French, as well as white folks. So it was, you know, a very mixed group. But when the audience came, and the Black audience came, the howls of laughter, because it's Southern. It's Southern humor and it's Southern language. And so many Northerners don't get the humor of Tennessee. And, you know, you hear the stories that he used to sit in the back of the house when they were, you know, opening Streetcar, and you'd hear this cackle. And no one knew what was funny, but Tennessee thought so much of what he wrote was hilarious, even the most upsetting moments. So at any rate, I learned a lot doing that, and it confirmed what I sensed, but didn't always get enough of in the humor of his plays. But Dylan gets the humor of Tennessee. So does Susanna.
Yeah.
You do, dear. Yes.
Anne from Wayne, Pennsylvania says, and this is sort of a callback to something you said at the very beginning, Dylan, that many of us think no Williams without O'Neill, no Albee without Williams, no Letts, Tracy Letts, no Will Eno, no Sarah Rule without Albee. What do the two of you say?
I think that we all, you know, all artists kind of influence each other, you know, in many ways. You know, that's why I'm always attracted to, you know, painters and musicians and other actors and directors and writers. I think it's, for me, I have a photograph in my house here. It just says art. And I need to, that's the only way I can survive, is through art. I don't know how to live a life without it. So I think that we all need each other. We all influence each other. We all have to be in each other's lives to survive, especially now, you know?
Oh, yes.
Especially now.
I so agree, Dylan. Oh my goodness. I agree. I think everyone influences each other and no one knows exactly how. Interestingly enough, when Dominique Morisseau came to see Streetcar on Broadway, my production said, oh, I see. My influence is no longer going to be just August Wilson, it's going to be Tennessee Williams. He's the grandfather to all of us. So, you know, you never know who's going to be in the audience and what person's going to end up writing. But, you know, I worked with Edward Albee a lot. And he did not feel that he was influenced by Tennessee, let's put it that way. Now, Edward was a tricky character, and he didn't give much credit to a lot of people, but if anything, I think Edward wrote in reaction to, the opposite to of mean, which may also be its own connection. Yeah. But of course, O'Neill really was the source for so many, because he was really the first great American tragedian in my and modern tragedian in my view, and just that he influenced Dylan the way he did, and I think Dylan's not alone. I decided to go into the theater after I read Long Day's Journey into Night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all somehow we're all connected in some way. Yeah.
We keep going back, by the way.
Yeah.
Going back to the greats, you know, those Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, you know, you go back to it. You go back to O'Neill, you go back to the greats, because that's why they're great. You go back because they are great. And thank God we have them.
Thank God. Yeah. I picked up Cat in the Hot Tin Roof again this week, because one of my friends, Jade King Carroll, and she said, oh, I just happened to see it, and I picked it up, and I thought I'd just look at the first scene, and then she couldn't put it down. I thought, oh, I haven't looked at it in a while. Same thing happened to me. I could not put it down. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So making the transition to this year and our current circumstances, would you both share what you were up to at the beginning of March? What projects you were working on or preparing for that were interrupted or canceled as a result of the current crisis?
I had just finished Hollywood, which was great that we finished. It was a rush to finish it in January, so that was great. And I was in production on a movie called King Richard about Serena and Venus Williams. That was their father. Such a great story. You know, the triumph of those two women, you know, in Compton with broken down tennis courts and practicing every day. I mean, such an inspirational story of these two women. So we had to shut down, unfortunately.
How far did you get through production?
Like half done. So it's a big Warner Brothers movie, so I'm sure that will be one of the first ones up, and it's, you know, it's got everything. So whenever we go back, whenever that will be, don't know how we go back, but that's on the list to return to.
How about you, Emily?
Well, at McCarter, we were just about to open our wonderful production of Sleuth, Anthony Schaffer's play that Adam Immervar was directing. It was brilliant. People were, you know, jumping to their feet, you know, oh, great, we have a big hit on our hands, you know. And that was Tuesday night. Wednesday night, there were fewer people. And then we realized we may not make it to opening on Saturday. And I think it was Thursday morning, we were still wondering whether we could perform that night, and then Broadway announced they were shuttering. And we realized we could not put anyone at jeopardy, and we shut down. We got, I guess it was Friday night, or maybe a day off here, we decided that we would get a video capture of it. So we did do that with very few people in the house. And that was good, so that we didn't lose it. But that was a shocker. And then we were in pre-production for Nathan Allen Davis's trilogy. So that would have been the end of my season, my final season. So that was tough. And then we went into high gear on what do we do? How do we handle this? And went into crisis management. I was also writing. So as I said earlier in the show, the blessing is that as a writer, I can keep creating. I'm like Dylan, I don't know how to live without art, without creating something. So that's the creative side of my life now is writing my 2 plays.
So Dylan, we have to talk about Hollywood. For folks that haven't seen it, your new Netflix miniseries with writer and producer Ryan Murphy of Glee and American Horror Story fame and so many other successful and entertaining projects. How did the two of you first meet, and could you talk about collaborating with him on American Horror Story and how that project led to your role in Hollywood?
Well, I mean, like Emily, Ryan is one of those people in my life that, you know, we keep working together, keep going back with each other, have an affinity for. And I think, you know, when Ryan and I first started doing American Horror Story, again, you know, for me, it's always humor. I mean, he asked, like, one of the first scenes I had to do for Ryan was to cry and masturbate at the same time in front of the window.
You heard it here.
Which was let me tell you. So he knew I was up for it, no pun intended. And that moment, we just became fast friends because he was like, oh, this guy can just whatever I throw at him, he's going to do. And that's proven to be true over many years now. I played 3 different parts on American Horror Story, then in The Politician. And now I think, you know, probably his biggest triumph will be Hollywood. I mean, you know, I'm getting calls and emails and texts from around the world. And I think now, you know, Sandy said it takes 20 years to become a great actor, but I think I have to amend that and say it takes 30. And it's taken me 30 from Glass Menagerie to Hollywood. I have grown and worked my ass off as an actor to arrive. And I'm getting incredible notices from Hollywood because I've continued to work. I've continued to work on the craft of acting. And talk about elusive. You know, you never arrive as an actor. You never get it. You never figure it out. You know, it doesn't just land. It's like every single time it's mercurial. It's like, I have it. No, I don't. You're always slipping out of your hands. It's like, where did it go? I just had it. What are you talking about? You know, so it's just, the thing that's stayed consistent, luckily in my life, is that in my career, is that I've always continued to make the work the priority. And that's, I think I'm reaping the benefits of that now because I never gave up, no matter how lean it got or how tough it got. I always stayed in the work, never got lost in, you know, you like me, you don't like me, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm good, bad, whatever. It's like, I'm going to continue to do my work like Sandy talked about, and good things will happen.
Dylan, Cecilia from my hometown of Southwick, Massachusetts. Hi, Southwick. Hi, Cecilia. Kiss your mother for me. She asked, what has been your favorite role Ryan has cast you in? Now, I am not able to watch horror, so I can't watch you. I can't watch you cry and masturbate at the same time, sorry to say. I'm a weenie, but it has to be Ernie West, is it?
I would say so. I think because it's such intricate character work, which I love. You know, I kind of got trapped into being a leading man. And then I realized, you know what, my love is character work. I love to create a character. And I think when you look at Ernie, you will see that it's a science, it's a mathematical problem. And I have filled in all the blanks, and I worked so diligently on him, and down to his underwear. I had underwear made for him. You know what I mean? What the chains and his scent and what he ate and the way he walked and the way he carried himself and his optimism and everything was like, it was a mathematical problem. So and his hair and his mustache and the whole thing, it's just something that I was attracted to as an actor, that particular type of work, which not all actors can do. You know, most actors rely on their personality. That's what they have. And it will carry you for a long time if it's a really interesting personality. But for the most of the time, it kind of wears thin. You're like, oh, he's that same guy. I could be that same guy from The Practice, you know, for my whole career. that would have been a tragedy. Because I was that guy for that period of time, but I was also a character actor, and I could do all these different characters. And for me, that's the goal now, is that I'm able to do that, and I'm able to create character and to die into character, like Stanislavski talked about. And that to me is the joy I get from acting, is that part of it.
Dylan, it's so clear to all of us that have had the opportunity to see your work in Hollywood. Deborah from Churchville, Pennsylvania says, I found your character in Hollywood unlike anyone I've ever seen you inhabit. Mm-hmm. I agree with her completely. And you do this amazing thing of sort of merging a character actor with a leading man, especially in episode 6 of the season. I wonder if you could just share for folks that haven't seen it yet a little bit about this character of Ernie West, who he's based on, and how you approached him.
Yeah, Ryan really said he wanted to reinvent me. And I think that I probably need a reinvention. As an actor, you need to be reinvented, every 10 years. And I think that, he's such a good friend to me that he was able to give me a part that I could reinvent myself. And I knew that. And like when I was a boy with Eve, I clung to her and she said, I'm going to take you. And I was like, yes. And the same thing with Ryan. It was like, here's a person who could take me to the promised land. I'm going to hold on to him because I need him. And he created this role for me. I remember he called me and said, I'm writing you a part. That's like, to an actor, there's no greater words besides I love you than I'm writing you a part. So when I read it, I was like, okay. Initially, he wanted me to have a crew cut, but I saw him. I have a poster of the Misfits that sits in my house, and every day I look at Clark Gable. And Clark became my muse for Ernie in many ways, mixed with Scotty Bowers, who was a real person who had the gas station in Hollywood and would have the boys it was a pimp. He was a pimp, an actor, and a producer. So a mix of Scotty Bowers and Clark Gable, my imagination, the writing, and then doing the hard character work of answering questions and coming up with a guy who was bigger than life. And Ernie is someone who taught me about optimism, because there were times when I would finish work, I'd sit in my trailer and I was like, shit, I'm not done with that. I need more. I want to be in this guy more. I didn't want to go home. That's when you fall in love with a character, and that doesn't always happen. Most of the time you're rushing out. But this guy, I fell in love with him. And you don't know, that's the magic. That's the magic of art, right? Sometimes you just fall in love.
I would have to say that I fell in love with the character in you. And the story that gets told finally about him, so that we get to see what he's all about and the potential for his dream to come true. I don't want to give much more away, but the camera just loves you in this character, Dylan, and you're in color and in black and white, and it just is such a delight to see you get to fulfill like all of your potential in this way, and I'm so happy for you.
Yeah,
Emily, you have to see episode 6 at least. When you have a moment, you're writing a lot.
I can't wait.
Emily will attest to this too. You never know, you do. Emily, I'm sure you've done, so many plays, but how many actually do come into focus and fulfill your vision and stick with you and say, oh, that was pure art.
Yeah.
You do a play, you work, you do a play, and people come and they have a nice experience. But then there's that every once in a while, it all lines up. And that's why I continue to do it. Because that's the hit.
Yep. I cannot, I'm as soon as we get off, I'm going upstairs and starting to watch. I'm going to binge watch the whole thing.
Oh yeah, you'll love it. It's fun.
I know
So
I
much
will.
love is being shared in the chat. Juan Luis just gives you Dylan. He says Ernie's one of the best performances ever. Complex, honest, and riveting, memorable and relatable. I'm ever more inspired by your journey and to watch you soar in this part.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think about being here tonight, and I think about Glass Menagerie 30 years ago, and I think about the journey of the actor, the journey of the artist, and it's never overnight. And I hope it's never overnight. I hope it's long and drawn out, and I hope you go inch by inch and moment by moment, because that's the magic of the whole experience as a life as an artist. I kind of pity the people who get everything in their 20s.
Oh, I know.
And they never have it again. You know, then it's over. I think it's really important to kind of go slow and to evolve and to change and to become. I think those things are so important. And that was my journey, and I'm so grateful for it now. I'm so glad that I didn't become a big star. You know, I've always maintained, and now I'm having another moment, and I so appreciate it. But I have to say, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, Emily, is that the joy of it is in the moment. It's in the doing of it. It's not really the whole thing. You know, there's always disappointments in the whole thing, but it's the joy of doing that really keeps us coming back.
Absolutely. No question about it. No question about it.
Emily, you've been writing up a storm, and I would say like sort of a hot off the press, I don't know what the theatrical equivalent of that is, this piece that you wrote for the 24-hour plays project online and on Instagram, and McCarter's also linked it to their website. Could you talk a little bit about what that project is and the piece that you wrote?
Yeah, the 24-hour plays are really cool. The guy who runs it, Mark Armstrong, is a dear friend and colleague, and I actually met him because he did a production of my play Execution of Justice at NYU with students, and it was mind-blowing. It was magnificent, and we connected, and we have stayed connected ever since. He wrote me 2 weeks ago and said, well, we're working on a revival of Execution of Justice, actually. So we've been in touch a lot. But he wrote me and said, you know, we're doing a documentary project of these plays. And what the 24-hour plays are is there's a theme often, and a playwright is asked to write a play between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. the next day. You're paired with an actor or two or whatever the project is, and sometimes a director. This project was a documentary project, and often this last 10 weeks is about COVID. And this particular week was about incarcerated people. And they decided to do it as a documentary set of monologues. And so they asked me if I would do it. And I thought, sure, I'll try it. So they pair you with a subject. And I was paired with a woman named Lacey Duhat, who is the public defender in East Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And she's a young thing who is fierce. And she has been responsible. She's 28 years old. She was in the public defender's office since her last year in law school. She is devoted, and she got 800 people out before they died inside, basically, before the prison was absolutely decimated by COVID. She's just a heroine. I just think she's fantastic. And it was great to talk to her. She's completely self-deprecating. She just is, you know, focused on this is what she's going to do. And she puts everything she's got into it. And she doesn't know what a hero she is. And that's one of the reasons she's such a wonderful character, and was wonderful to write about her. So I did a 10-minute monologue on her. And Madeline Brewer played her, who is just phenomenal, and brought her alive. And I had a blast doing it. I was able to donate my fee to to the incarceration group, the group of advocates that are working with the incarcerated. And I'm now starting to talk to people who have seen the monologue, because it's gone pretty far and wide, and start talking about working with possibly people in the Innocence Project or in Centurion. It's been great. I mean, it's one of the reasons I love to do documentary. It takes you out of what you know and you learn something huge. So
I was going to ask you about artistic blossoms that have come into view, and it seems like every day or the next time I speak with you, there's something new that's growing for you. And I just think that's wonderful, Emily. Dylan, Jill from Princeton and Mary from Pennington, New Jersey, and I know one artistic blossom that has come into view for you, and his name is Leslie Jordan. So Ryan Murphy refers to you and Leslie as national treasures. What can you tell us about your friendship and the news that Ryan's already broken, but not everyone may have heard?
You know, I met Leslie on the set of American Horror Story in 1984. I was actually doing American Horror Story and Hollywood at the very same time. And I would go from set to set and play these wildly different characters, you know, a serial killer with his thumbs cut off, to Ernie, who was, you know, 1947 glamour pimp. I don't think I've ever been happier in my life to do that, to play those characters at the same time. Anyway, one day on the set of 1984, I saw Leslie walk towards me, and he just struck me as the funniest person I'd ever seen in my life. And we started having this conversation. I said, we have to take a picture. We took a picture. We did this scene together, and he just made me laugh. You know, I've always been attracted to these characters in life. And we just kind of remained friends and followed each other on Instagram. And then one day I noticed that he posted, he said, I'm now forming a fan club for Dylan McDermott for middle-aged gay men. And I was like, oh my God.
If you haven't seen it on Instagram, friends, the Leslie Jordan on Instagram, and Dylan, what's your Instagram handle?
Dylan McDermott.
Okay.
And then it was just we just kind of laughed, and we went back and forth, and then even as of yesterday, he posted something. He had a mood board, and he's talking about his mood board, and he kind of pans over to it, and there's like, you know, some living rooms and lamps and couches and pillows, and then there's a picture of me. So suddenly somebody sent me, again on Instagram, everything is Instagram, somebody sent me a poster of Leslie on the bed with his feet up, me rolling up my sleeve, and then a Ryan Murphy production, and it was called King Daddy Ruler. Now Leslie has given me the moniker King Daddy Ruler. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Well, it has a life of its own. I tagged Ryan on the poster. Next thing I knew, he posted it on his Instagram saying that he is now developing a show for Leslie. That's Hollywood.
Oh, thank you for keeping us entertained, and it's so exciting to see you able to like really engage with your comic abilities. It's wonderful. Thank you. We are past time. I'm sad to say. I cannot thank you both enough for this time with you. It felt like none of the rest of the world was happening. So my great gratitude. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. McCarter at Home and McCarter Theater Center will continue to reach out to communities with programming. Every Monday, we will share out information on upcoming virtual and community play readings, live artists in conversation events like this one, behind the scenes interviews and archival footage from some of our favorite past productions. We know now also from the score in the webinar chat that we need to stream Baby Doll, find some way. Yes. And also that you and Emily need to do a production of Streetcar for Sure.
Oh, hell yes.
Hell yes.
Maybe not on McCarter at Home. We want to see that in the theater all together
Oh
with
yes.
you.
Oh yes.
But folks that are with us, as soon as you sign out of this event, you should be taken to the McCarter website where you can sign up for future McCarter at Home announcements. Just two things to take note of. Registration is now open for McCarter Online summer classes for the month of June. These are classes for children and adults, grades 3 through 12, and also for a grade more mature. I'm teaching 2 classes for adults, plays and performance in context and introduction to scene writing for adults, and I'd love to have you join me. And also, hearkening back to Emily's amazing documentary play, Execution of Justice, next Friday at this very time, actually, May 22nd at 6:30 Eastern Time, McCarter, in partnership with the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice in Princeton, New Jersey, and the New Jersey Theater Alliance, will be hosting a virtual community play reading of Execution of Justice. This event is intended to celebrate the 30-year legacy of Emily as artistic director and resident playwright at McCarter Theater. We also hope to boost the signal on the activism and advocacy of the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice on behalf of LGBTQIA kids, intersectional individuals and families, and all marginalized people. And we'll also get the party started for a wonderful June, which is Pride Month. On May 22nd, that's also marking the 90th anniversary of the birth of Harvey Milk. So we will honor Harvey's life and legacy with this event as well. So you can find a registration link already at McCarter.org/McCarter Theater at Home. We'll read the play and then engage in the whole ensemble in a virtual talking circle, whether you're reading or listening, and we'll discuss our experience of the play in relation to our personal resonances or contemporary concerns. I hope you will all feel welcome to join us for this really special event. I'm so excited to be doing this with you, Emily. We had this plan before COVID, and I'm so glad that this sort of virtual universe will allow us to share it together. So join us. And thank you again, Dylan. Such a delight and such a pleasure. Please take care of yourself and stay safe. And
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much love.
cheerio.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, stay well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.